This is ESPN Radio.
If you keep it a low bar to clear and then you step over it, everybody's happy here.
That's it. Always want to under-promise, over-deliver. Keep low expectations, and then when you exceed those, everybody's giving you a pat on the back. You don't want to do it the other way around. That's called hustling backwards.
Exactly. We're not here to hustle backwards.
No.
We are here to manage expectations at Canty and Golick Jr. on ESPN Radio and ESPN+. Now, we're presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests are going to join us on the Goodyear Hotline. And in the world of normal expectations, we got Sal Paolantonio coming on in a little bit. Yes, exactly.
Nobody's better at talking NFC East football than Sal Pal. Nobody.
I kind of want to ask Sal, too, because Sal Pal is all things Philly. I feel like he does every hit from inside of Wawa. I feel like he's the guy that's going to be able to tell us if there is a central New Jersey. I saw that debate going around the internet yesterday, if it's just North and South Jersey or if there is a middle ground around Rutgers. I feel like Sal Pal knows that.
Yeah, he should be able to get to the bottom of that, John, no doubt.
That is a tremendously good John around here. By the way, speaking of bad Johns, too, right here, and we'll get to plenty more. We got Kevin Byard, who's going to join us in a little bit on the show as well here. We'll talk to Ryan Clark, our ESPN NFL
So we're
analyst.
just all about hard-hitting safeties when we're doing this show.
Yes.
That's what it's going to be.
We're knocking necks loose.
That's it.
Straight up. That's all we're doing around here. But someone on our staff got their neck knocked loose, very much so, last night as the Dallas Cowboys put it on the Philadelphia Eagles. And we mentioned, speaking of Johns, we are more Philadelphia per capita as a department in ESPN Radio than anywhere around here. And Cliff, our producer. Cliff, so you tried to go up on a bet with somebody around here. What was it, Bubba, who is our Cowboys fan around here that you guys hear on Greeny? And now you're rocking the Dak Prescott jersey today, man. Humbled quick.
Our resident Cowboys fan here, Bubba, that snake, Bubba Peregrine. We did a a little wager. There's a jersey in there. There's an Eagles jersey in there somewhere. I said, look, man, my Eagles gonna win this Monday night game. You're gonna have to rock this jersey. He was like, all right, but you're gonna have to wear this Dak jersey if they lose. I'm like, all right, bet. I'm confident. I'm thinking my boy's gonna go down to Dallas, whip up on the Cowboys. Couldn't be further from the opposite. This is not a good day, man. This is 2 days after my birthday. This is your birthday. I'm supposed to be happy, and right now I'm at work with this dirty, disgusting Dallas Cowboys jersey on. Somebody just tweeted at me, said I'm not even allowed home anymore. Wow. I'm not even allowed back in Philly anymore. That's crazy.
Listen,
right?
Cliff, I will give you your respect because at least you put your name to it with your football team last night. You put your fandom on the line.
A loser pays his debts, right?
Sucks for you that they let you down, but I mean, when you looked at that Philadelphia Eagles team, I'm not going to be able to say it with my chest in terms of having any confidence in what they're going to do this year with Jalen Hurts, especially going into a game last night with the Dallas Cowboys, seeing how they looked the first couple of weeks of the season. So for Cliff to jump out there on that limb and back his team under those circumstances, I got to give him a little bit of respect.
No, nothing but respect. Cliff holding it down on there. We'll see if Sal Paolantonio can offer you any sort of words of encouragement.
Sal got to let me back in the city, man.
That is true.
I'm not allowed back no more.
If anyone can give you the keys back into the city of Philadelphia, I promise you it's Sal Paolantonio. So we'll get to that, but let's, start. The winners go the spoil here, Chris. And the Dallas Cowboys, one of your former teams, went out and yet again, now 3 weeks in a row, I think we've seen them continue to check off boxes for this team. And we know offensively they've been a juggernaut. Looking up and seeing the stats this morning, surprised. I know it still doesn't look perfect, but when we talk about what this team needs to be, this Dallas defense now leads the NFL in takeaways. 8 takeaways through 3 games. I think it took them 11 weeks last year to get to that mark. So at the very least, they're doing something in the way of being productive enough to help this offense out.
Yeah, the last time the Dallas Cowboys had 8 takeaways through the first 3 games was the team that I was a part of in 2007, and that team won 13 games and hosted a game in the divisional round of the playoffs. That could be the ceiling for this Dallas Cowboys team. We could be talking about this team being able to stack some wins in the NFC East and have prime playoff position to try to go on a run. Now, I don't think they're the best team in the conference, and I know we'll get to that conversation later, but the dominance that they showed last night just reemphasizes my point or my belief that this team is going to win the NFC East going away. There isn't a team in the division that's going to be able to compete with what the Cowboys are putting out there right now. That offensive line was dominant again, running behind Zach Martin, running behind Tyron Smith. Those guys are road graders. Anytime you can have 40-plus rush attempts, you know that means that that's something good for your team. The Dallas Cowboys last night, 41 rush attempts, 160 yards. They got to the point where they were making that Eagles defensive line love it. And it wasn't a whole lot of fancy and X's and O's. It wasn't a lot of schematics. It wasn't a lot of play calling and sequencing from Kellen Moore, it was those guys putting their hands in the dirt and rooting up the defensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles, which ain't easy to do when you got Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox in the middle. So that Cowboys offensive line showing that level of physicality against those people, I mean, if they can do it against that Eagles defense, they can do it against anybody, which is why I'm high on the Dallas Cowboys this season.
It's been a different world up front, and I think this was the bet for the Cowboys this season. If we were going to talk about them as one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the NFC, it was going to be because that group of triplets of, all right, Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, La'el Collins came back healthy. And last night you did it without La'el Collins. Remember, he's 5-game suspension for trying to pay off the NFL drug testing people there, which is its own thing we talked about yesterday. But the fact that Terrence Steele's come in now and this offensive line has still been rock solid, watching what they did up front against that group. And how about this? I mean, the Zeke Elliott situation that they've got here now. Pretty even split again. Zeke leading out a little bit, 17 carries versus 11 for Tony Pollard, but both of them averaging about 5.5 yards per clip. Zeke was the one getting you into the end zone, but it's settled into what looks like a nice rhythm with those two where you're seeing a lot of similar things, and I think it's allowing Zeke to be a lot more powerful, a lot more explosive than we've seen in recent years. I know he trimmed down. He got himself back into better shape this year.
But don't let that fool you, though. Because he caught a couple of Eagles defenders slipping yesterday. I mean, there were a couple of runs that Zeke had where at the end of it, they had to stop play because they had to walk one of those Eagles defenders to the sideline. They needed to tap out for a second. So for everybody that was saying Zeke was washed up, don't tell the Philadelphia Eagles defense that because he put it on those dudes last night. And you're right. I do like the combination between Zeke and Tony Pollard. I think they both bring a little something different to the game. Zeke more the in-between the tackles hammer for the offense with the run game, and then Tony Pollard more the slasher type. But I think there's a place in that rushing attack for both of those guys, and if they can continue to be what they've shown as dynamic as a 1-2 punch as there is in the National Football League in the backfield, I mean, it's going to be all good things for that Dallas Cowboys offense, which is already a scary group when you consider Dak Prescott and the weapons that he's got to throw to.
Now, Mike McCarthy, the Dallas Cowboys head coach, did mention that this wasn't just a Cowboys offense win, as he talked about all 3 phases after the game.
Defense set the tone. We went down and scored, but defense responded right after their fumble touchdown. But that's when you talk about complimentary football, that's what you're looking for. I think all 3 phases contributed to the win. They have a good return game that was in check. Greg did a great job getting the ball into the end zone for the kickbacks. But defense played with tremendous energy. And this was a different offense. Just enormous amount of screens. A lot of space. A lot of speed, and I thought our guys throughout the week did a great job of recognizing it, and the communication on the field was really good. But, hey, once again, we played a lot of young guys again tonight. We're getting better. We got a lot of room to grow, and that's what's exciting.
Canty and Golick Jr. here on ESPN Radio. Chris, you mentioned this Cowboys defense, 8 takeaways through 3 games, something that hasn't been done since you were in a Cowboys uniform and a part of that team. Still, only pressured Jalen Hurts on 11 of 48 dropbacks last night. It's the lowest Jalen's faced in his career. With what they're doing up front, we know what they lost in DeMarcus Lawrence. Can that group grow into enough, you think, to get this team to a place where it's not just hosting a playoff game, but winning one or multiple?
Well, when you start talking about winning playoff games, you have to have pass rush. And right now, that's the area that the Dallas Cowboys need to improve in the most. When you look at the offense, the defense, the special teams, the area that you circle is pass rush. And we knew they were desperate at that spot because they moved Micah Parsons, who's an off-the-ball linebacker from Penn State. They moved him down to play defensive line when DeMarcus Lawrence got injured in that first game against the Bucs. So they were desperate to try to find pressure players up front in order to get after opposing quarterbacks. That, to me, is going to be a work in progress. Now, getting DeMarcus Lawrence is going to help, but you also need young guys like Randy Gregory and Osa Odighizuwa to continue to come along and punch up that pressure package from the Cowboys. Dan Quinn, he can draw up a lot of fancy schemes, a lot of pressure patterns, but at some point you're going to have to rely on 4 guys putting their hands in the dirt and getting after the quarterback and playing coverage behind it. Right now, I don't trust the Dallas Cowboys defense to do that. What I do trust them to do is take the ball away and pursue like their hair is on fire. And for that, you got to tip your cap to their new defensive coordinator because I'm seeing an energy and an effort level on that side of the ball that I haven't seen from the Cowboys in years. and that's something that bodes well for them as they have championship aspirations for this season.
A lot of great on that side of the ball starting to develop, especially in that secondary. Trevon Diggs, big night for him last night.
Dayron Kearse, too.
Yes.
He flies around and gets after it. A lot of people don't know the name, but it's time for us to start giving him some love. He's kind of one of those safeties that can kind of line up anywhere on the field and do a lot of different things. Like, that dude is a weapon for Dan Quinn.
So we've got a lot of weapons for the Dallas Cowboys right now. Coming up in about 30 seconds, we'll get into it with Sal Paolantonio, our guy, try and see if there's any silver lining for Cliff's Philadelphia Eagles. We will do that after this word from AT&T. Now, guys, if there are family or friends that you haven't talked to in a while, don't worry, because it's never too late to reconnect. To help, AT&T is offering deals on the latest smartphones. It's not complicated because everyone deserves something new. So AT&T is giving new and existing customers their best deals on every smartphone, even the latest ones. Restrictions and exceptions may apply. Visit att.com for details.
That he is truly an elite NFL quarterback. As Bart likes to say, a force multiplier. And those guys elevate everything around them.
That's just one, and that's just a step, and that was a big step in the building block of where we're going and what we're trying to accomplish.
Canty and Golick Jr. here on ESPN Radio. And for more on what we saw on Monday Night Football from the Philadelphia Eagles, we head to the Goodyear Hotline to talk to your friend, our guy, Sal Paolantonio, who joins us now. And Sal, we appreciate you giving us some time on what's a rough day, I'd imagine, for the city of Philadelphia. As you look back and assess the performance last night, what was the biggest issue you saw on the field for this Philadelphia Eagles team?
Biggest issue, Mike, without a doubt, to me, was the game plan of Nick Sirianni. I mean, you have to start there. I know he's been pretty beat up about it in the last 24 hours, and he should be. He just got behind the sticks, and, this is his first year calling a game as a head coach, offensive coordinator, and we knew there would be growing pains. But, they need to have much more balance on offense if they're going to be successful, especially on the road, especially against NFC East teams like the Dallas Cowboys.
Sal, one of the things that stood out to me last night was the penalties on the Eagles side. 13 penalties yesterday for 86 yards. Gave the Dallas Cowboys 4 first downs due to penalties. What does that speak to when you see a team as penalized as the Eagles were last night?
Right. After 3 weeks, Chris, the Eagles have set a franchise record after 3 weeks in penalties and penalty yards. So that is not a good start for the new regime of Nick Sirianni. They've gotten off to a very slow start in terms of penalties, in terms of game plan, and clearly this is a team that was out-muscled. I mean, they were pushed around. You heard Louis Riddick on the broadcast last night, and nobody's closer to the team than Louis. You heard Louis Riddick say on the broadcast last night that the Eagles' defensive line was getting pushed around by the Cowboys' offensive line, and that was not a good look, Chris. Not a good look at all.
Canty and Golick Jr. talking to ESPN NFL reporter Sal Paolantonio. Sal, then there's the quarterback. Jalen Hurts last night throws for over 300 yards again, but puts the loss on himself after the game here. Through 3 games, what's the report card look like for the quarterback who right now is on a 1-year trial basis for this Eagles team?
Mike, and, people say that, and I'm beginning to think that is true, that it is a 1-year trial basis. They do believe in Jalen Hurts, clearly. But let's look at big picture, little picture. The big picture is that Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts have been on the field in NFL games for 3 weeks together. Again, we were going to see growing pains. So that's the big picture. The little picture, I just called my man, your man, our guy at ESPN Stats and Information, Evan Kaplan, and I said, give me the breakdown of Jalen Hurts on third down after 3 games, because what I have seen on film, Mike, is a guy who cannot get his team out of trouble throwing the ball on third down. So Evan said that Jalen Hurts' QBR, just the raw data, QBR on third down is 41, which is 21st in the league and well below the league average of 58. So the data bears witness to what the film shows and what happened last night, especially in the first half. The number one job of your quarterback is to throw the team out of trouble on third down. And if you're behind the sticks like Nick Sirianni was in that game, it was up to Jalen Hurts to find ways to move the football, to keep his defense on the bench, keep that Cowboys offense on the bench, and they weren't able to do that.
Sal, switching over to the Dallas Cowboys, they took the L in Week 1 against the defending champion Buccaneers. They went on the road and they beat the Chargers in L.A., and now a convincing performance at home against the Philadelphia Eagles. How good is this Dallas Cowboys team? Where would you put them in terms of ranking the teams in the conference?
Well, Chris, I'm the host of the NFL Matchup Show, as you know, and Greg Cosell and Matt Bowen have done a really, really good job in the first 2 weeks of breaking down the two things that we have seen from the Cowboys, one on offense and one on defense. And I just heard you talking about what you've seen in Dan Quinn's defense. One, the energy is definitely there. The use of Micah Parsons as sort of a Charles Haley 2.0, where he's really can do what he wants to do on the field within the structure of what Dan Quinn has drawn up, but can go hunt down the quarterback from the DE position. And I tell you, they have discovered something special with him. That's without a doubt. They have also discovered on offense the use of Pollard and Elliott. That is a very good, thunder and lightning 1-2 punch at the running back position. And what we said on the show, Chris, Week 1 is you got a 17-game schedule. So where does the attrition come from? And from playing at the highest level in the NFL, attrition comes first and foremost defensive line, because that's where guys get banged up, nicked up very, very quickly. Michael, you know that from your dad. Defensive line in the rotation who could come in and out and spell guys, and when they're nicked up, give them a game off. That's number one. Number two is running back. You got to have enough running backs to make it through a 16-game schedule and now a 17-game schedule. So the Cowboys have really discovered something, I think, with Pollard and Elliott. No question, because you look at the number of pass attempts for Dak Prescott last night. Wasn't it 25 or 26?
Yep, that's it.
It was, yeah, right. So, listen, if you go back to Ben Roethlisberger's first year in the league as a rookie, what made him so special in that first year was they kept his pass attempts to 20, 22, 25, 26, and that's what they have to do with Dak now, because he's coming off those injuries, and they can't put everything on Dak. Keep those pass attempts down and the rushing attempts up with those two running backs, and that's the formula for success, I think.
And we're going to see if that formula can continue to be successful for them as they march toward the big goals that they've got in Dallas for this squad this year. Sal, you're the best. Always great to talk to you, my friend. We'll get you back on here real soon, all right?
Appreciate you, Sal.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chris. Love you guys.
Again, our ESPN NFL reporter Sal Paolantonio also does a great job hosting that NFL matchup show as well. And Chris, the one thing I'd say, just going off Sal's last point there about Dak, is I think they can put the game on him still. We saw that in Week 1. That was a game they very much had a shot to win with Tampa. That's the best sign about this team, is they can be whatever you need them to be. And right now that defense is giving that offense extra opportunities to go ahead and do that. They can truly attack whatever the weakness of the defense across from them is, because the foundation is strong and they got weapons out the wazoo.
Yeah, their attack can be matchup specific, right? They have that versatility because you have the weapons on the outside and because you have that two-headed monster in the backfield. You can go about this thing a lot of different ways. But to me, the key, the linchpin in all of it is the offensive line. And I hate saying that because I'm a defensive lineman and I don't want to have any positivity toward offensive linemen at all. But the fact that their offensive line is capable of being that physically dominant against a really good defensive front that the Eagles had out there, like, that's a good sign for the Dallas Cowboys. It's a good sign for them. They were able to have 62 runs plus completions last night. That's a big number. I remember going into games with Bill Parcells. He said the goal should be to have 55 runs plus completions. If you do that, guarantee we're going to win the football game. The Cowboys had 62 last night. 41 rush attempts, 21 completions. That's a good sign for this team moving forward. We said that this could be one of the most dominant units in all of football. Last night, they sure looked it.
Dak Prescott becomes just the second Cowboys quarterback to complete over 80% of his passes in back-to-back weeks. The other, no surprise, Troy Aikman in 1993, last 2 weeks of the season en route to another Super Bowl for them. So Dak in esteemed company in that Cowboys uniform. Get a hold of us and be a part of Canty and Golick Jr. Nation on the Dr. Pepper call-in line, 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. ESPN Nation's presented by Dr. Pepper. College football's back, and so are the fans. Return to glory with Fansville by Dr. Pepper, the one fans deserve. Coming up next, though, the Philadelphia Eagles were certainly disappointing last night, so much so that Cliff's got to wear a Cowboys jersey. But have they been the most disappointing team through 3 weeks of the NFL season? We'll tell you that next here on ESPN Radio and ESPN+. If there are friends and family members you haven't talked to in a while, don't worry. It's never too late to reconnect. To help, AT&T is offering deals on the latest smartphones. It's not complicated. Everyone deserves something new. So, AT&T is giving new and existing customers their best deals on every smartphone, even the latest ones. Restrictions and exceptions may apply. Visit att.com for details. Sonos is the official sponsor of ESPN College Football. Get in the game from home with Sonos Beam, the compact smart soundbar for TV, music, and now with Dolby Atmos. Immerse yourself in shows, movies, and games with astonishingly clear sound that fills the room from wall to wall. And when the TV's off, stream music, radio, podcasts, and audiobooks from all your favorite services. Sonos makes it easy to create your perfect sound system for your home with speakers for every room. Start with one and add more when you're ready. Learn more at Sonos.com.
This is ESPN Radio.
Canty and Golick Jr. here on ESPN Radio and ESPN+.
It's a celebration.
Oh, God.
Happy birthday, Gojo. Happy birthday, my man.
Appreciate it.
Celebrating another trip around the sun. How you feeling?
No, you know what? I had to get up and foam roll this morning. I iced down my knees way more than I ever did while I was playing. So this all checks out.
It's funny how that
32.
all happens when you get on the other side of 30, isn't it?
Chris, it's wild. So, again, I sit here I didn't play in the NFL for any long period of time or anything like that, but I got north of 30, and everyone was right. And all I can think about is Kyle Rudolph was one of my good friends, one of my roommates from college, still playing right now with the New York Giants. I look at him and go, dude, how are you going and doing football stuff? And then I realize he's not that old. And so I'm looking at Deshaun Jackson and Tom Brady and these guys what? Man, what are y'all made of?
I don't know, man. Those guys must have found the fountain of youth or something. They got something going on, but I don't know how they're able to have this level of productivity at this stage in their career, knowing how my body feels and knowing that those guys are my peers and they're still out there playing football. That's incredible, man.
Yeah, no, so just...
But let's not let that take any of the shine away from what we're really talking about, which is your birthday.
Yeah, no, listen, 32, Magic Johnson year here, so gonna try and see if I can emulate all the success that he's had in a number of different ways. But like you said, man, survived another trip. Shout out to mom and dad for making me. That's pretty cool thing, pretty cool gift.
That twinkle in Senior's eye.
My God. See, I can't believe that I took us there either.
You did.
My dad, who for years would supplement this with the porn bed music that he would always play. Could you imagine what it's like, Chris, to be in a college football training room, getting ready for practice, and hearing that coming out as people put on, they had Mike and Mike on TV in the training room back in the day. Brutal what I listened to. It's that beaten into me that I couldn't just help but go there.
Yeah, listen, you crack that door open, I'm going to walk right through it.
And now I'm going to shut it promptly here and say we're going to move on to some Straight Talk brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless and get the hell away from that one right now. And instead focus on, maybe this is a good theme here. Disappointments in the NFL so far here. We will see and look back at last night's game a lot more. The Philadelphia Eagles were a team that no doubt have disappointed their fans, like our producer Cliff, who's wearing a Cowboys jersey. Yeah. They did so well last night. But through 3 weeks of the NFL season, Chris, looking out there, are they the most disappointing team you've seen so far?
No, they're not. To me, it's the Colts and the Seahawks, both of those teams, 1A and 1B. I mean, relative to the expectations that we had on them coming off of what they did last year, both of them were double-digit win teams, both of them in the playoffs. I mean, you're talking about the Colts being a goal-to-goal sequence away from being able to pull off the upset against the Bills in advance. And then the Seahawks, I mean, this is a team that, with Russell Wilson, you felt like was capable of, competing at a really high level, given that they won their division last year. And the NFC West is considered the toughest division in football. So for those teams to be where they're at, 0-3 and 1-2 respectively, and the two losses that the Seahawks had against the Titans in overtime at home and then against a winless Minnesota Vikings team, like that's really disappointing. And you look at what the Colts situation is, Frank Reich made the move to bring Carson Wentz into that organization. They felt like they elevated or they improved their quarterback position. For this team to start off 0-3, like it's just not the direction that you thought they would be heading. So two disappointing starts for those teams. Teams that were in the playoffs a year ago could potentially be on the outside looking in this year.
Yeah, that Colts one, too. I mean, it's felt like a disaster since this summer when Carson Wentz missed time with the foot injury. You missing time with the COVID-19 protocols, and that being the subject of everything. And so I know we talked about them last week. That's one of the teams with a chance to turn it around because of that division, but it's already...
It don't look like it. It don't look like it's going to happen.
Not at this point. Now, I will say, as I look at disappointments here, I think this team certainly has a chance to turn it around, but it's hard to look past the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Like, sitting at 1-2 here. The Chiefs are, I believe, 1-2 for the first time since 2015 and in sole possession of last place in the AFC West. Like, it's a wild thing to think of. And you look at the games you lost here. Ravens team we expect to be really good. Chargers team we expect to be really good. But one of those is already in your division. You look like you could have lost that game against the Browns pretty easily if it were not for a couple of breaks at the end. Like, they've been living and dying by the sword too much here in these close games. I think we said going into last week, 10 straight games decided by single digits, and so much of that falls on the defensive side of the ball. Like, I'm not ready to sound the alarms on this team because I just have too much faith in that offense and the ability for them to grow, but at this point, sitting at 1-2 here, it's hard not to look at a team that was playing for the Super Bowl last year and say that's been lackluster.
Yeah, and they came into the season as the preeminent favorite to win the Super Bowl this year. So, I mean, it's just one of those things. Like, you feel like the Kansas City Chiefs will figure it out just because how good Pat Mahomes and that offense have been over the past 3 years. But some of the things that they're doing on that side of the ball are hard to ignore. Like, we know the defense is awful. It's been awful for a couple of years. But their approach on that side of the ball was just do enough, get key stops, maybe key takeaways, and our offense will take advantage of it. But when you have the offense giving the ball away as much as the Chiefs offense has through the first 3 games of this season, like, that's the one that you have to be concerned with. Like, that offense doesn't have the margin for error that other offenses do because their defense is one of the worst in all of football. They had 4 turnovers on Sunday against the Chargers, 2 the week before that against the Ravens. At some point, those giveaways end up catching up to you. A part of the fear factor in playing against the Kansas City Chiefs is that Pat Mahomes is a threat to score on every single possession, which puts so much pressure on the opponent. When you have the turnovers that they're having now, that takes that pressure off of the opponents, and that puts it squarely on the Chiefs' defense. And we know that that's not a group that can handle that type of burden. So moving forward, if they don't get those turnovers cleaned up, then this is going to be a long season for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not going to move out of the cellar of that division anytime soon. They've got to make sure they take care of the football and try to get that offense back on track and being as dominant as we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I wonder what it's going to take for us to stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. Because I know, like, for me mentally, that was a tough hurdle to clear. And then the Super Bowl happened where I'm like, oh, Patrick Mahomes will just outgrade them. And then the Super Bowl happened. We got into a series late in that game where all of a sudden Patrick Mahomes is driving and he throws an interception here. And that's
a bad interception, too, off of his back foot falling away. Like, that wasn't a good interception at all. Like, I can understand trying to be aggressive in certain spots, but that was one of those plays that your quarterback just can't make. Similar to the interception that he threw against the Baltimore Ravens late in that third quarter. Like, those are things that you can't do, especially knowing that their defense is as bad as they are. So, I mean, you hate to kind of pile on and put all this stuff on Pat Mahomes, but heavy is the head that wears the crown, or in this case, the $500 million contract. Like, you've got to take care of the football. That's on you. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you can't put the ball on the ground either. But, I mean, everybody's going to focus on the quarterback because it's a quarterback-driven league. Pat Mahomes has to take better care of the football in order for the Chiefs to get to where they want to go.
The reason we're all so shocked is because the Chiefs are now under 500 for the first time in 89 games. Going back to 2015 was by far, according to Elias Sports Bureau, the longest active streak heading into last weekend. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. Coming up next, though, A very specific crowd in the NBA had their day yesterday as media days got going here. We will pour some water on the flames that are coming from some interesting voices in NBA circles next on ESPN Radio. Gatorade knows there's no one path an athlete takes to unlock their true greatness. For DK Metcalf, greatness starts with an early morning grind, going hard when everybody else wants to quit. For world record-breaking track star Sydney McLaughlin, it's all about setting a goal and working hard every day to shatter it. And for Jason Tatum, greatness starts with giving everything to live up to the legends that came before him. Whatever path you take to greatness, Gatorade's proven formula is there to help you fuel it. Greatness starts with G. Dell's Black Friday event has arrived, and it's the perfect time to step up your creativity. With early access savings up to $300 off PCs, it's Dell's biggest sale of the year. Get more into what you're into with the latest XPS and Alienware systems featuring Intel Core processors. Save on top monitors, docks, and accessories, all with free shipping, plus great financing from Dell Preferred Account. Call 800-BY-DELL for Black Friday deals. That's 800-BY-DELL.
This is ESPN Radio.
Up in about 10 minutes, we'll talk to Titan safety Kevin Byard. Check in on how their season start is going right now. As for some reason here on Canty and Golick Jr. on ESPN Radio, our producer Shannon Penn, who does an outstanding job manning the helm of this show every day, you just can't get past Byard for some reason. Have you kind of figured this one out? Because you've been going hard with the Byard the entire morning here, and we want to try and get this right before you answer the phone.
For some reason, it just does not compute with me. For some reason, it's Byard. I can't get it. I don't know if it's just the B in the yard, Byard. I can't get it.
Say it with us. Byard.
Byard. Yeah, Byard.
Yeah, Byard. Yeah. Byard beware.
Yeah, Byard.
Yeah, exactly.
So we got Kevin Byard coming up next.
All right, there we go.
He's just going to say, what up, Kev? How you doing, man?
That is true. You got to really lean into a nickname or something shorter there.
KB maybe, go with that.
That is true. Or I could say you could pull the Letterman and ask him, hey, why do people call you KB? Which leads us into, by the way, as we're presented by Progressive Insurance and guests join us on the Goodyear Hotline. We're brought to you by Goodyear, with you for every mile on the road to greatness. Goodyear, more driven. That was one of the topics that came up at NBA Media Days going on there. Katie didn't look like he took to Letterman's line of questioning there all too well.
Yeah, it took him a second to process it. Then he realized what was happening, and he decided he was going to play along. But it was an uncomfortable listen. Make no mistake about it.
It was an uncomfortable listen. Not nearly as uncomfortable as it was listening to Kyrie Irving, Bradley Beal, and some others discuss the vaccination stuff going on in the NBA right now. And, Chris, I felt like that dominated a lot of the conversation yesterday, and it's worth noting contextually, as we're going to play you sound from these guys. Like the NFL, this is a vocal minority, right? Like the NBA has 90% of its players currently vaccinated. We're talking about an estimated 40 unvaccinated players in this sea of guys. So I just want that out here before we give too much of the platform to these guys that dominated conversation just because these quotes are going to sound absurd sometimes.
No, you're right for being able to provide that kind of context, but we also got to remind folks it only takes a few guys to derail a team season or the NBA season, because if these guys that aren't vaccinated introduced to the locker room, potentially bring in the virus and infect other guys, get breakthrough cases, that can be a problem for teams to deal with. That could be a problem league-wide. So that's why there's concern for this very small minority that refuses to get vaccinated among the NBA population.
Yeah, so let's start off. We had Kyrie Irving yesterday, who was not in person in New York for that meeting, was doing it on Zoom from what looked like his home. So you can infer what you want there, but he was asked about his status yesterday.
In the spirit of not putting limitations on the future, do you expect to play in home games in New York, considering the rules in this state?
Again, I would like to keep all that private. Please just respect my privacy. All the questions kind of leading into what's happening, just please, everything will be released at a due date. And once we get this cleared up, but as of right now, just please respect my privacy regarding anything around home games, what's happening, vaccination, please. If you have another question, Malik, I'd love to answer it.
I can't with Kyrie Irving. I just can't. I mean, respect your privacy. What about the health and the privacy of your teammates? What about the aspirations that they have for the upcoming season, knowing that you're a big part of that? Like, these are the things that Kyrie is not considering when he's giving these sound bites to the media, when he's doing these interviews. He can have his stance. It can be his personal choice not to get vaccinated, but he's also got to understand how that affects all of his teammates. Because if you're talking about somebody that's unvaccinated coming into that locker room, as a teammate, I would damn well want to know why you're not vaccinated and what your plans are moving forward, because they affect how I go about my business. So I don't know how you can listen to Kyrie and look at his situation and look at his position and say that he's anything but selfish under the current circumstances.
Yeah, and we've brought up before this idea of this not being mandated by the NBA in this situation, the way it is for some staffers around there. Because you talk about it, other people, we've seen reports that some of the staffers around NBA teams that are mandated to be vaccinated, there's a little bit of tension there. There's people that feel like this could put their family in danger. There's people that feel some type of way about the fact that it's mandated for them and not the players. Now, it's worth noting, and this came from NBA spokesperson Mike Bass, that a vaccine mandate would have to be in agreement with the NBA Players Association. I thought Bomani Jones on his podcast made a great point that as a players association in any league, you cannot get down with management telling you you've got to put anything in your body. Like, just as a precedent, that can't be something that you rock with here. But the importance you mentioned about voices and the weight they carry, because right, wrong, or indifferent, these things matter. LeBron James came out and finally let people know Tuesday at Lakers Media Day about his status. He said, I know I was very skeptical about it all, but after doing my research, I felt like the vaccine, was best suited not only for me, but for my family and for my friends. That's why I decided to do it. And so a person with his level of impact coming out and saying that publicly, that matters because people do listen to that and take that seriously.
Well, the other thing is, it's what's in the best interest of the business. And as somebody that's the president of the NBPA, Kyrie Irving should know better in terms of how those types of decisions, not getting vaccinated, affects the product overall and also affects the bottom line. Like, this is one of those things where the NBA and the NBA players are in a true partnership. It's not like the NFL. It's not like Major League Baseball. They actually work together and they split the pie down the middle. If you're Kyrie Irving, you have to understand how your stance could potentially impact the business moving forward. Right now, it's not in anybody's best interest for you to keep this position of being unvaccinated, but that's where Kyrie Irving's at with it.
That's where Kyrie Irving's at. We'll talk to Matt Sullivan, who wrote a great story about this in the Rolling Stone later on in the show here on ESPN Radio.
Do you own or rent your home? Sure you do. Fortunately, Geico makes it easy to bundle your home and car insurance. It's a good thing, too, because having a home is hard work. Go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. Geico.com. Easy.